Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mitch McCoy. I'm the Director of Public Affairs and Information for the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. President Chris Saraceno is going to offer some remarks this afternoon. And we also here have Vice President Sonia Jenkins Gray. We have Chief of Police Robert Tracy, and we have Board Attorney Chris Greville that's ready to answer any questions that might come up if they pertain to some legal issues.
Thank you.
President Saraceno.
Thank you, Mitch. Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. We are aware of the lawsuit filed this morning by the City of St. Louis. Just wanted to provide some clarity through this process. For months, the board has remained dedicated working through the complex challenges of the budget and the conversations with Mayor Kara Spencer and her administration. Our latest meeting was Monday night when she ended our scheduled meeting with her Chief of Staff promising to provide a third quarter financial numbers update. We did receive that late yesterday afternoon. We again stand ready and willing at all times to continue productive dialogue with the mayor and her team to continue these important budget talks. This is simple. It's a discussion about how to fund public safety under state law. This issue will now properly be decided in the courtroom, a process we respect, and we will now allow the judicial system to do its job. Let me be clear, we stand by our $250 million expenditure request, which is 18% of the city's general revenue fund, which was passed in February by the full Board of Police Commissioners. We cannot lose sight of the importance of public safety and this department's continued progress reducing violent crime. We are down several hundred police officers from a few years ago, and we have 200 more officers able to retire today. We must have real conversations about funding the SLMPD. We must do it, and we must do it now. We are focused on doing our work, having honest conversations, making responsible decisions, and finding solutions. We understand the budgets are complex, and yes, difficult conversations have to be taking place. And it is inaccurate and frankly offensive that anyone would suggest that we don't care about our city's workforce. Every decision we've made and every conversation we have entered in and we've gone into the best interest of the entire city of St. Louis in mind. The board has carried on its responsibility under the Missouri law by identifying the resources necessary to operate this department and to professionally affect the accountable police department. The work was done thoroughly, transparently, and with public safety our guiding priority. We are a law enforcement agency first and foremost, and we follow the law as it is written in the Missouri statute while being responsible stewards of the taxpayers' money. Thank you again for being here, and I think we'll open it up to questions.
Judging by your comments saying that this should be handled in the courts, was this board considering its own litigation to resolve this matter?
Anything related to that, I'll have our attorney.
Well, I would use.
Sorry.
What I would say is, litigation, anytime you have something this new, is always an option, and always something you have to have in the back of your mind. But what I would say is, we just recently completed the MOU. That took about 8 months to do. You have to be patient because it takes time for people to have conversations and kind of work through things. So, as the president said earlier, we had a meeting on Monday. We were working through things. I think we got through a couple of things. We're waiting on some information, but you always have to be prepared for it.
We'll talk about, did the lawsuit catch you off guard?
Yes. It did. Based on the meeting on Monday, and I'm probably not speaking for the entirety of the board, but based on the meeting on Monday, the commitment to provide updated third quarter numbers, yeah, it did.
Yeah, I will speak on the board. It did catch us off.
Vice President Jenkins Gray, do you want to talk a little bit about that meeting Monday and which, yeah.
Sure.
As mentioned, we did meet with the working group on Monday evening, which consisted of several members of the mayor's staff or team. And it seemed to be going in a productive way because at the end of the meeting, it was stated that we would receive third quarter numbers as an update. I was in contact with the chief of staff after that meeting to schedule a new meeting so that we could get together and continue the discussion. So as mentioned, yes, it completely caught us off guard, as we thought that we were still in negotiations and that we would reach some resolution. So yes, it did catch us off guard.
What do you make of the lawsuit's argument that the state takeover law violates the handcuff law?
I'm not going to speak specifically to it, but I think, you do make a good point, Katie, that, it's an 8-count lawsuit. Really, the count that involves the board and their budget is one alternative count. The majority of this lawsuit is really challenging state control. A Hancock, as you pointed out, allegation or violation of Hancock is challenging the legislation. So that was a little bit caught us off guard as well, as we thought we were talking about this narrow issue of budget. The lawsuit is about everything, including trying to undo the memorandum of understanding that we agreed to and put in place.
So how is that going to work? Are you going to represent the board and the AG's office represent the state, or are you just going to do it all in one?
I've had conversations with General Hanaway. She's always been, and I expect to have conversations with the governor's office to start preliminary working through that, and is incredibly supportive of the board and the board's positions. And I anticipate that, that will be how the representation will be done.
Respectfully, who will be paying you during this legal fight as it goes forward with now lawsuits? Will your salary come from the city?
It'll come out of the board's budget and their allocation for this year.
The question of the general, what defines the general fund, is that $250 million numbers, for clarity, that includes RAM settlement money and the reserves from the city. That's where that 250 comes from.
Well, and I don't know, can I answer this? Talk about it, Mitch, about that.
You're getting specific into the lawsuit.
Well, I think I
You're the
can call it
attorney.
generally about the calculations. So there's two things that happen and two numbers that are out here. So the 250, I know everybody wants to talk about 330, but the 250 is what we certified as the expenses. We've never asked for 330. The 330 came up because we were trying to figure out in communications with the city, the mayor's referred to it as her proposal, communications with the city as to, how that is calculated, because it's a brand new statute. It doesn't necessarily include the RAMS money. I mean, obviously, we believe general revenue is much higher than what the city has stated the general revenue is, or that what we believe the general revenue is. But in our work on this, we did not think we were getting into that. The discussions about the RAMS money and the strategic reserve were really about what does that percentage look like on the overall budget. And that was coming through the working group, and Commissioner Jenkins-Gray can talk a little bit about that as well, that with regards to how we were calculating that.
Can I just follow up on something though? I just want to make something clear, and there's this idea out there, because right now we're being billed for some city services like the mowing of the grass, I think was reported out by some media. There's never been a thought by the police board, Attorney Gravel, anyone here, that if we are paying the city for services, that we would ever consider that part of the general revenue. And that has been some accusation that's been made in recent days. That is abundantly false. But I just want to make sure that that's clear, because there's been a lot of conversations. There's been a lot of misinformation, probably intentionally shared throughout this process. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Could we hear from the chief? What message does it send to your officers to hear that a lawsuit has been filed, Chief?
Well, first of all, the men and women of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, they do a tremendous job day in and day out. We all know we're short-staffed. A lot of police departments are going through that across the United States. But coming in, I knew we were short-staffed. They're following the strategy. They're going out. I believe their morale is getting better and better. But when you hear things like this, sometimes that can take a hit on morale. Are they being supported? Is the administration supporting them? I believe that the officers know, and I continue to have constant contact. I have internal messages to them. I think one of them, I saw Elliot, you put one of my messages that made outside the police department, and I know it's going to go outside the police department when I do my internal messages. But I'm trying to keep their morale up. They can continue to do the job. My job as the chief, and as the board's job, and as the attorney, and as a public information or public affairs, is to make sure that we're dealing with everything that's going on here so they can do their job. We want to make sure that they know that this is a lot of politics going on. There's some rhetoric that's out there that's not helpful, but at the same time, that's not the overall consensus of the city as a whole at the community meetings. So we get a lot of support in what we're doing. So they know that. Continue to do your job. We got you. We're trying to put our best foot forward. We're trying to make sure that we can be competitive with our money and the raises to make sure that we can bring more officers in to keep the city safe. And that's really what the intent is. It's not to damage any other places, but public safety is the #1 factor in every city I've been in. And until you start to bring that up, you know, it brings the rest of the city up. And if that starts to go down, we'll be, you know, at a certain point, we're going to run out of police officers. I've said that, because attrition is still outpacing the amount of people we're hiring. And I believe it has to do with the pay matrix, because Kansas City fixed the same issue that we had by being competitive with their pay. And now they're closer to budgeted strength and actual strength for police officers to do the job on the street. And every community meeting I go to, the #1 question is, Chief, can I get more officers? Can I get more officers? Crime is going down, but the perception, it helps with the perception of crime when they see more police officers out there handling these jobs. And then think about how much progress we made. How much more progress can we make for this city? Elliott says it. Yes, crime is going down. Homicides might be going down, but Chief, it's still high, too high. I agree with you. And how do we drive it down further? We got to get more officers on the street to do that type of work. And I believe the pay matrix has to be corrected. And some of that is in this budget that the police board, I've asked the police board, can you consider it? And they have. And I thank you for that. And I think the citizens will too. And so do the officers.
What is your reaction to the contentious relationship between the city and the police force, considering crime being what it is?
Well, I don't think the city, this is contentious. This is
pretty contentious.
This is contentious where we're having conversations here that's being reported.
She's
But
suing you guys.
behind the scenes, we still work together as a police department with all our other city agencies. We're having conversations every single day. So we know things are happening above us. We know things are happening in the media, but we got a job to do. We're professionals. And so are all the other city workers. So this is not the first time a city has differences of opinion or public discord or even in the media. But we stay professional. That's who we are. And so do the other city departments. So we get along underneath it. We make sure we get the job done, because you know who loses when you have public discord? The citizens. And we want to make sure we're doing the right thing. We're not going to get caught up in that. And you know what? This is a budget. This is a professional disagreement with where we are. And I think in the end, I think we're going to be in a better place when this is all said.
Does
Chief,
this
Chief, I don't know if
budget-
this question is for you or the board president, but the mayor seems to have planted her flag on about 220 million, 219 million being the number the city will provide in its budget for this year. Can you run the department as you want to, with that number being what she appears to be providing to the police department?
I want to make sure that where the number is at, we're looking at a number right now where we can be competitive, where we can run the police department. But those are some of the things that we're still trying to work out, and where the board has been trying to have these negotiations to get to the number that we know where we can still keep the lights on. We got to remember, can they afford the raises, the buildings that we're taking over, the additional employees that we're bringing in? And those are the type of conversations that we're trying to have. Let's just remember that these contract or the budget negotiations happen a lot behind closed door, but because it's public record, because of new state board, it happened back in February. We had to certify a board. Now everything's out in the open, but you're not seeing any of these conversations happen with any other city agencies where the boards put out in a negotiation. For 3 years before this, I sat down and I met privately with the budget director and the mayor's team where we're at. Here we have to, but by law, we have to put things out. They have to certify a budget, and then we can work off of that. And that's what that's what the board's trying to do. That's what we're trying to do. And no one's looking to harm the rest of the city just for the sake of the police department. We're all in this together, and we all need this city to succeed. So the answer to that is that we looked at the $250 million, and we're thinking that's a spot where we believe that's where we're going to be able to get the raises and do the things we need to do to lift this city up and move to the future.
Chief, budget processes, now litigation, those can be very time consuming. Is this taking your eye and focus off of making the streets of St. Louis safer?
Just even CompStat today, We're going to continue to do, we're regimented, we're consistent, keeping our police officers, our eye on the ball, making sure that we continue to do these things. Yes, it can be a distraction, but my job is to keep our department focused, make sure that I'm following up, putting messaging out, and then making sure that our leaders continue to do the job. And we actually, this leadership team, we actually make sure that this politics, we don't let it permeate into the police department. We try to keep them going out and do their job. Let us deal with this. Let us deal with the press conferences. Let us deal with the budget. And you guys go out and do the job, because we have your back. We're going to make sure that we're going to do everything again to make this the best police department in the United States. And they know that they have the support of the board and their police chief. And so I have to continue to have those conversations like any organization. And you know what? Under all these circumstances, I'm very proud of our police officers, because they go out and do that job each and every day.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to support the chief's comments. He has done a remarkable job through this process of continuing to run the day-to-day operations of this department and leading his men and women in a very tough situation. We've had an unfortunate loss of an officer through training. There's constant things that happen in this department that this chief and the commanders work on every single day, and we cannot, as a board, be any more proud of what they have remained, and they've remained nothing but professional through all this process. So to ensure you of the work that the chief and his team has been doing is as board members supporting their operations, but the chief has done a tremendous job. The whole team has, the commanders, and all the way down through to our police officers who continuously to serve our communities day in and day out. No matter what the weather is like, no matter what is going on day and night, they are out there. So we continue to be very proud of these men and women and ask them to continue their commitment to the city of St. Louis, which they have.
Commissioner Jenkins-Gray, I believe you said earlier that negotiations were close with the city. Could you elaborate on that?
For clarity, we were able to begin conversations around reaching some type of agreement, but the meeting was ended. And we were awaiting additional numbers from the city, in which we did receive on yesterday evening, I believe. And we were waiting for the mayor's office to respond back to us for our next meeting, is where we ended that meeting on the on Monday.
And whether you or Commissioner Saraceno, if you can talk about it, are you guys willing to come down from that $250 million number that you have?
Attorney Graville will answer that, since that's related now to the lawsuit.
You know, the 250, there was a lot of time and thought and energy that's been that was put into that number. One of the things that was said by Commissioner Jenkins-Gray at our meeting on Monday night was there's this comment about the devastating impact on the other employees and on the budget, and it was a question of, can you explain that to us so we can understand that better? Because it was explained to the city, we are tasked with following the statute to do a budget for the department. How the city comes into play, we're learning that. This is a brand new board, this is their first budget, and it was an ask of explain that to us so we can understand it. 250 is a number that the board, the chief, the department believes will make the necessary impact to bring more police officers. If that's something that has an issue with that number, the board has always expressed a willingness, but asked, explain it to us. And I think that was the hope of the follow-up meeting. So it's not really it's not really necessarily a number back and forth. The 250 is what the board and what the statutory requirement is. What do you believe? What does the board believe is necessary to have the impact to deliver law enforcement services to the community?
So in what way is that a negotiation then, if you are statutorily allowed a certain amount of money?
It's a great question. You know, there's a lot of conversations that happen before the conversations. As you know, I think I've talked to you about, Katie, the MOU. You know, that started with one issue and morphed, it addresses 20 or 30 different issues with regards to litigation. I've been representing government entities for 24 plus years, and, you know, conversations, sometimes the preliminary conversations are necessary just to get to a conversation to talk about stuff. For example, Commissioner Jenkins-Gray produced in a correspondence with the chief of staff for the city, a working group document to talk, how are we going to have these conversations? Who's going to be there? What are the baselines? that was discussed. There were questions about what is our process, what does the timeline look like, discussed. So sometimes progress is incremental, but progress is progress, and I think that was kind of what the board was viewing these meetings as.
In some ways, is it gonna be good to have some legal clarity potentially on what the statutory amount is, if the judge does indeed weigh in on that?
I think the board has always sought clarity in whatever format that is, and I think that's what President Saraceno has said, that's what Vice President Jenkins Gray has said, is we're seeking clarity. And that's what we desire. So the sooner we can get to clarity, the better. But I don't want to understate the importance of this board is here. They're here as a state board running the police department that has to work with the city. So, you know, the board will always have an emphasis, even if it's in difficult times or difficult conversations, of having conversations.
Did the state law and how it was set up, I don't know if this is for you, Chris, or for the president, did you guys have enough time to get your feet under you before having to tackle this? I mean, was this law drafted in a way to set the sides up for success?
I'll just say, I'll answer that from a commissioner standpoint. We hit the ground running. And then if you look back at our timeline of the appointment in July, the being unappointed due to the redistricting conversation and things like that, then getting back to doing business in October, and so much to be accomplished during this time. If it would have just been normal circumstances, we had deadlines to meet, and our attorney was continuously reminding us of those deadlines. So it's a very good question that we were under pressure to get some of these things done, and would have been ideal to have a little more timeline and to be able to get under us and get our feet as to stable to really, yes, but we had a job to do. And I mean, that I think is where we land here today, is just we were under to get a board to get a ratified expenses by the end of February, and getting those numbers from the city and all that timeline was just very difficult to do. But you know, it wasn't from a lack of hard work by all the commissioners and our legal team and the chief and all of his support staff to get these numbers to be able to deliver that in a timely manner. So legally, I would have.
Yeah, I would just add, you step into this building and you see where any of the substations, whether it's the chief or his staff, and you see a constant doing more with less. I think the board's been inspired by the police force here with regards to there are no excuses. It's about accountability and transparency, and you know, having enough time was really never something I think the board or anybody talked about or really has had time to look back and kind of think about, Rachel, with regards to that. So.
All right, thank you guys very much. Appreciate your time.